Let's face it, the regular media is a joke. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be contained by people that got the facts before they reported it. Well, we are bringing that back. This is the Brooks Report Live. We are the true voice of Southeast Texas. Breaking news, weather, traffic alerts, events, Q&As. If it's happening in Southeast Texas, we are there. This is the Brooks Report Live. And now your host, Adam C. Brooks.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us here on the Brooks Report Live. I am your host, Adam Brooks. If you would, put a 1 in the comments if you're watching us live, put a 2 if you're watching the recorded version, and like always, let us know what city you're watching us from. Please be sure and share this broadcast. Invite your friends, tag a few friends in the comment section if you will. Help us grow here on the Brooks Report Live, and stay tuned for the show. Thank you guys for joining us.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for following us here on the Brooks Report Live. I am your host, Adam Brooks, and I am joined today with none other than Heather Smith with Heather Smith Outdoors. Thank you so much for joining us. Everybody give her a round of applause, if you will. Thank you so much, Heather. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, Adam.
Here, but I'm actually doing the sound effects right now.
I heard it. That's why I was like, yes.
Yeah.
So that's funny. From the cheap seats.
So for folks that don't know, and I'm sure everybody knows you're from East Texas. We know that you've been on Naked and Afraid probably a few times, and we're going to get into all that. Mm-hmm. But I want to start a little bit before all of that. I want to know how you ended up on Naked and Afraid, and I want to know how you started Heather Smith Outdoors and where those passions and those loves came from. So just let's start with. I know you have some children that you're very proud of. I always see you posting about your children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the littles. Okay, so we're going to go back. So I'm originally from South Louisiana. And so I was born in a place called Raceland. It's right next to Houma. You can't really get more Cajun than my family, but my family has moved on to the other side since then. They're looking down. Anyway, I was born in South Louisiana. I was raised, moved to Bridge City when I was a kid, went to Clear Lake in Houston, owned a bar in the Kemah area, did sales outside, even worked for NASA a little bit for a while. Went to school, University of Texas in Austin. I actually have my degree as a paralegal. Don't use it at all, as you can tell. Gotcha. I do have a consulting business, which I do social media management and I do marketing and I help people with building brands. Kind of like I built Heather Smith Outdoors. But in 2018, I lost my family. So my dad had already passed away, but then I lost two grandfathers, a grandmother, and a mom. And actually that was the end of 2017 going into 2018. It just kind of went. It's not even a cool apocalyptic story where they were all in an accident. It was just a weird domino effect of every 2 months, another family member was passing. And,
gotcha.
It got to the point where, the next phone call I'm getting, I'm like, okay, there's nobody left but the littles, I'm worried. Right. And so, I do have an older daughter, and I have a granddaughter that was born, last year. She's now 1 year old, but my older daughter does not like the limelight. So I do not, put her on social media. She really wants her privacy. And so I respect that.
My youngest son is that way, Colton. And I have to ask him special permission, like, hey, can I take a picture of us and post it? And he's either like, yeah, or nah, not today.
Yeah. You just know ahead of time. And so the littles, they don't even care. Like they're even into their own branding now. They even remind me all the time when I'm doing something, they're like, well, that's not good for the brand, Mom. Like they're doing their own thing, and I'm like, they've been raised like this now. But and they're in meetings with me all the time when I'm meeting with clients and we're doing social media management or anything. So these kids have been, they're going to be prodigies or they're going to completely hate it by the time they hit 18. So 2000 going back, cause I know I skip around, 2018, I moved up to Sam Rayburn, and let me see something real quick. What's that? Okay. That wasn't you that texted me, was it?
I don't know.
No.
It may
Okay.
have been.
No, it's good. 2018, I moved up to here when my mom passed. That was the end of all the deaths, right? So she
Mhm.
wanted her ashes spread on Sam Rayburn. So I picked up a fishing rod and I went out to visit my mom every day. And so, like when my dad had passed, my dad was like my best friend, and so he was buried in Louisiana. And during that time period, it was a very dark time period in my life. And the Littles were not in existence at that time, and I handled that death a lot worse, right? So, I turned to alcohol and other things, and I knew that now having the Littles, that's not an option. It's not something I can do. And I would go to my dad's grave every day. Well, there was no grave here, so my mom wanted her ashes spread on Rayburn. So I picked up a fishing pole, and I went out every day to visit my mom. And my mom owned a H&R Block in Jasper, and so she had the same manager working with her for 20 years. So that was like a well-oiled machine doing its own thing. So the Littles were in school. I went from knowing all my friends and that I left behind, coming up from the fourth largest city to like a town of 223, as you know, Brooklyn is.
Right.
So it was a very shocking change for me. So I just kind of focused on either going to the gym, picking my kids up from school, or on being on the water. And that's all I really focused on. Bob Seeley, who had known my mom, Randy Dearman, this was back when they were having breakfast in the mornings at the stump during the week. Right. So after I'd leave the gym, if I was on the water, I'd go over there and I'd have an egg white omelet every morning. That was my routine, so.
Gotcha.
And I
You
would
said
sit
Bob
down
Seeley.
and
I know that name. I know Bob Seeley from the Big Bass Splash and all those tournaments he puts on.
Yeah, he's actually a 2-time Hall of Fame bass fisherman. And he also had the ESPN Redfish Cup for 7 years, that was on ESPN. So, and he used to be the former director of the Women's Pro Bass Tour, and he was a host for the CMAs.
Wow.
There's so much I keep finding out about it, Anyway, he's became the closest thing that he's a very, very close friend to me here. And the closest thing we have to what we would consider a family here, you know what I mean? It's not really because, but
Sure.
the Littles, look up to him and he's my mentor, and he and Randy and Charlie King and some other guys decided if I was going to start bass fishing, I was going to do it the right way, and they kind of took me under their wing and kind of put me through this bass boot camp. And I was actually forbidden to fish with other people because they didn't want me to have to unlearn everything that I learned the wrong way. And so this went on for weeks and weeks. And then Charlie King and I fished our first tournament together. And we did very well considering the sticks that are on this lake, And from there, we just started fishing. Magazines noticed me. They started writing articles on me. I just kept focusing on the gym, the water, fishing and learning as much as I could. And my kids, and I blocked everything out. I literally blocked out a personal life, refused to even have one. I didn't know anybody here, so it really didn't matter. It's not like this is a happening place. You know what I mean? So, I think Bob one time asked me how come I wasn't married or something. And I was like, well, I don't know if you looked around, Bob, but the pickings are kind of slim up here, So so that was kind of a joke. I was like, I didn't want a personal life. I just really wanted to focus on, at this point, what I was really unbeknownst to me was my way of dealing with grief,
Sure.
What I didn't find out until later that, fishing, they use that for people that are going through therapy or depression. They use it for veterans with PTSD, children with autism. It's actually very cathartic for you. And my dad had been an offshore captain growing up for over 30 years. And so the saltwater I was used to, the freshwater, this was new. But, I always have to have that saltwater fix because I just feel it's something that's in my veins. I have saltwater in my veins from my dad, So
I'm actually showing a video right now. I don't know if you can see it, but
I can. Yeah. That's a yellowfin.
Yeah. So that's saltwater, if I'm not mistaken.
That is absolutely saltwater. That's right out of Venice. That's actually my favorite fishery in the United States. And I was just there this last week and we caught 140-pound tuna, and we had 180-pound tuna break the guides off of the rod. So that's a different story for a different day. But anyway, so I just kept fishing, and
It just became a passion of yours. You were just
Mhm.
doing it. It was therapeutic for you. And
yeah,
then so one day, I guess you clicked like, why don't I make fishing my life? I don't know.
it
What
actually
happened there?
happened on its own before I even knew it was my
Yeah.
life. You know,
Yeah.
and so that's all I was doing all the time was fishing, and people were calling me wanting to sponsor me. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't having to reach out to people,
Were you
and
doing the tournaments and all that? Like, were
yeah,
you? Yeah.
yeah, I was fishing tournaments. Then the producer for the Elite Fishing League from Discovery reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be an analyst on the Elite Fishing League, which is the Pro Redfish Tour reality show they had. And so that was Pat Malone. I did that. Then the Hunt Channel reached out to me, asked me if I wanted my own show, Heather Smith Outdoors on the Hunt Channel. I took that on. Um,
So you're
then
not just a fisherman. You love to hunt too. And I had some pictures lined up, and I can't find them at the moment, but I saw. I mean, you go hunting just as much as you go fishing, correct? I mean, like you're.
I fish a lot more, you know, and
Yeah.
recently, to be honest with you, like the last few months, I take off ritualistically, I take off October through January usually
Gotcha.
every year. Like nobody can. That's my family time because the rest of the year I'm up to my alligators. Like my schedule is insane. My schedule is literally
Sure.
insane. So, but I do love to hog hunt. I do love to nutria hunt. I don't like trying to get me to sit in a deer stand quiet. You know, you have better odds baptizing a cat. You know, like so.
Well, I
Like,
raise Maine
you know, I mean,
Coons, so I get it. Yeah.
yeah, I'll do it. But you know, I
Yeah.
love fast action. You know, obviously
Right.
dove hunts are one of my favorites. You know, anything a little bit beyond your normal edge for me, that's fun. You know, gator hunting obviously is always fun. One of my besties is you know, Ashley Jones from the Swamp People. She and I
Oh,
just did the Nutri Rodeo together.
okay.
Um,
So how did we go from Heather Smith Outdoors to Naked and Afraid, which is a national program on Discover? I mean, like it's huge. I think I've seen every episode of Naked and Afraid, including your seasons. Um, Matt, Jeff, Steven, is it EJ?
EJ is my boy. I
EJ.
love EJ first
Oh
of
my
all.
God. I love all
Yeah,
those guys.
yeah,
You
I
know.
love EJ Snyder. He's the goat for the record.
Yeah. So tell
And
me how that came about. Like what happened there?
okay, so it was several years back, and I had been asked to do another survival show that they were coming out with.
Mhm.
And so I knew that they wanted, so I was like, yeah, okay, but let me go train for this first because I hadn't trained. Like, you know, I mean, I did,
Yeah.
they were like, you're tough. We know you can make it. Right. And I was like, yeah, I'm just not going to show up there without any training, you know? So I
Yeah.
went and Travis Johnson and I had been friends via social media. And I had actually had some other friends from that I had fished with that had been on the show. And
Mhm.
so I went up, and Travis Johnson is one of the top trackers in the country. And he owns Northwest Survival School up in Washington State. And he actually trains the Special Forces guys. They send him, you know, the guys that are in the military. And he does a lot of training with them. So,
Gotcha.
and he has this really cool camp that he has up there. And so I went up there and trained with him for a long time. And the littles went with me one point, and then I flew back up there and spent some other time training with them. And so I got certified in survival and advanced survival. And after I got my advanced survival certification, I was posting on social media what I was doing, and someone said, you know, you should do Naked and Afraid.
Mhm.
And I looked down and I smiled, and I was like, I should, right? You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Why not?
I called Amal Alasiri, who is a friend of mine who's been on the show, and Amal said, "Yeah, I think it's a great idea." And she put me in contact with the people I need to be in contact with, and wasn't long, I was shipped out to Africa.
And that is, I think we just saw a scene, and the guy that they paired you up with, let me just say, I know at the end y'all kind of reconciled, but that show was just like, it seemed like, I don't know, it was like they paired you with the wrong guy from the get go. Like he wasn't pulling his weight and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
So,
well, no, not at all. You know,
yeah,
there's been a lot of stuff that's came from that, but you know, editing is everything, and the story and the perspective. When the show aired, it aired on the 20th anniversary of the death of his stepfather, which was mentioned several times in the episode. And because his stepfather was an astronaut that died in the Columbia explosion. And so there's no way they're going to have the anniversary episodes, the offspring, be the bad guy. Like, he has to be the hero in the story.
Yeah.
You know, so, and every story needs a villain, and obviously I laced that boot right up, you know what I mean? So, like, yeah, you know, but I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, obviously it's very difficult because, I mean, the editing is one thing, but he really would not cooperate with me on anything. And he had his own agenda. He said that, you know, he could make it the whole time and not eat anything. And, you know, he was trying to claim that he was feeding me and giving me water. That's not the case at all. Like, I lost 10 pounds. He lost 35. It was very clear who was eating and who wasn't. And a lot of that stuff just wasn't shown. I mean, even when they talk about him, you know, making a fishing pole with this, like, it looked like nautical line, like a boat anchor rope. Where do you think the line came from? It was because I was chopping down palm trees every other day, and they showed me chopping the palm trees, and that's where the cordage came from. So I think there's even, you know, where he was like, oh, he kept his own fire going. No, he didn't. Every morning he would come over to where the main fire was that I kept, and he would get embers from it, and he would bring it back over to his thing over there. It was my job to keep the fire going, and I did a lot of stuff with that.
So for those folks, like, okay, like, I'm an avid watcher, but I know that I am probably not fit to do this show, right? But I know there are people that will sound off, these keyboard warriors, and they're like, oh, you should have done this, or you should have done that. Dude,
yeah,
I admire anybody that even attempts. I would not go in the woods or in Africa in Crocs and shorts, much less naked, like, without anything.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I always say it all the time. People that come on and the keyboard warriors, like, you would have done this, you would have done it. No, you wouldn't have. No, you wouldn't have. First of all, I said a million times I would have done things. So you get out there and you realize how fast everything is, right? And you're like, was that a camel spider? You know what I mean? Like, you just, the thing, it looks like a ninja, right? You know, like, these things fly by, like, several times. I remember in Africa, none of it was shown. And I mean, just a private example, like, he was crying about everything. He cried constantly, and he was scared of everything. And he constantly was trying to act like he was the victim. Well, I was grabbing lizards that were getting by. I was hungry. So a lizard would come flying by, and, you know, and I would grab a lizard and I would cook it.
Right.
And, you know, I'd offer some lizard, and then he was like, you're doing this to me on purpose. I had a pet lizard growing up, you know, and I was like, how am I supposed to know the guy's got a pet lizard? You know, like, I'm just trying to eat, you know? Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, how did this guy pass the psych about? So anyway, it was very difficult, but
we're seeing your daughters. We're seeing a clip of your daughters right now, you sitting on the swing, kissing them and that sort of thing. Do they know mom's famous? Like, are they like, oh, my mom's famous, or how do they handle all that? Like,
they think mom's a dork, honestly.
Oh, okay.
And so, you know, they think I'm a nerd, but they do know that people do recognize me. And so, we've been in Walmarts in New Orleans, you know, and somebody has screamed out who I am, like, and the littles are like, oh God, like, they just kind of close their eyes,
right?
You know, and I'm like, yeah, they totally cringe. And they get really excited, like, when Castaways was airing, you know, all their friends, I went to have lunch with them, and all their friends were wanting autographs, you know.
Sure.
And Lila was like, hey Mom, I need some more headshots and autographs. I was like, let me find out you're selling these. You know, let me find out.
Let me go on your Etsy account and see what's happening here.
Yeah. Like, let me find out. But no, we're really humble. I'm very humble. I teach my children to be humble. I mean, we live here. Do you know how many professional fishermen are here, and legends are here all the time? You know, so in my scope of opinion, when it comes to celebrities and or anything like that, we have so many legends in the industry that live right here in proximity near me and near us, that you know, those are the real people that we you know, show our gratitude.
They'll never receive the attention that you have, or, you know, that you would, but, these are the guys that kind of went before us and showed us like, here's the ropes,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I feel that same way about my, some of my uncles. Like, this world is totally not their world, but some of the things that I know that I teach my children is like, man, if you knew them back in their heyday or whatever,
Right.
No.
They were the old guy with an
Yeah.
apple with a pocket knife. You know what I mean? That's the guy
Yeah.
you listen to. You know what I
That's
mean? Like
exactly right.
that's who's going to give you solid advice. I know, and it's really funny because when Ashley and I are together, like we just spent the whole winter break going places, and somebody would either recognize me or they would recognize Ashley, and so it's funny because Ashley's daughters and my kids they're all together, and they're both like all three of them are just rolling their eyes. They're like, they're very, 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 very appreciative, but they're like, here we go,
Speaking of
because
that,
it gets
if
weird.
folks want to see what you're talking about, because I was kind of watching on your Facebook or whatever, you were posting all these videos, and you can go to Heather Smith Outdoors or Heather Smith and check these out. But I saw Ashley eating a heart of something. Is that right?
Yeah, it was a tuna. It was a tuna.
Yeah.
So when you get your first yellowfin tuna, it is a ritual to eat the heart of the animal. Otherwise, you're going to have bad luck and you'll never be able to catch another one.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
crazy. So for those who may be wondering, they may be sitting back and like, I don't know what's next for you or whatever. And I personally, I hope to see you again on the big screen, one day, because I enjoy watching you. Because I think not only do I enjoy it because you're right here. I spend a lot of time up there where you're at on Rayburn as well. But man, I really hope to see you back on the big screen again. And I don't know how all that works out, but man, I'm really looking forward to it. And if that happens, you're gonna have to come back on and like, hey, guess what? So I'm
most definitely. Yeah. I've got some other stuff coming up and that's in the works. I'm actually training right now for a movie role, so that's kind of interesting. So we've got something going on with that. That's pretty cool. And then I'm actually on the Hogfin Pro team, so I'll be fishing my Marlin tournaments on the East Coast this year for sure.
Nice. Well, everybody, you can go check out Heather Smith Outdoors right there on Facebook and follow her and keep up. And if she happens to know of a tournament or something like that, I'm sure she'll post it. And thanks again for coming on, Heather. I really appreciate you doing this interview with me. I know we'll catch up in person soon, probably at Rayburn Country. Go see Aaron, our buddy, or Joe Jr., but
I just called him this morning. I brought him back tuna, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he's sitting. He's at the Golden Nugget or somewhere. I think he's on a golf course somewhere. He's not here. So right. I'm gonna eat his tuna.
Absolutely.
That's what happened. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you so much for doing this interview. And listen, let's catch up again whenever you have something else coming up, and let's share it with the folks here in Hardin County, Orange County, Jefferson County, and let them know what's happening so they can be sure and follow you. So thank you so much.
Please do. Heather. I do have one thing to say. May 18th. Yes. May 18th. If you go to Galveston County out there, I am the chief marketing officer for the Big Ass Crawfish Bash. We have the Guinness Book of World Records for 58,000 pounds of crawfish. And we are raising money for veterans with PTSD. And our rescue, which is to fight child trafficking, is the organization that The Sound of Freedom, the movie, is based on.
Oh, we'll definitely check that out. That's easy to remember. May 18th. That is my oldest daughter's birthday, so I will remember that. So,
yay.
All right. Thank you so much, Heather. Have a good one. Thank you all for joining us here on the Brooks Report Live. Give a hand and a round of applause for Heather Smith for joining us here on the Brooks Report Live. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, be sure and stay tuned to the Brooks Report Live. Don't forget to turn your notification settings to all live notifications so you never miss. Hey, we've got a complete lineup coming up here on the Brooks Report Live. That will include not just me as your host, but we've got a complete new lineup coming up where you're going to have a veterans type show coming up. We've got a morning program that's going to deal with like just social issues and that sort of thing, just everyday fun, current events, that sort of thing. So we're not going to go away from news, weather, events, none of that. We're just adding to. So don't mistake that as saying, hey, we're done. But thank you guys again for joining us here on the Brooks Report Live. I am your host, Adam Brooks. Thank you for watching.